Dear Aida, dear guests, dear students and observers, participants, welcome to our special lecture, which I'm going to give to you. I try to make it as interactive as possible, so maybe you can make some comments in the chat, and hopefully I will be able to use the chat to create some interactivity. The topic which we're going to speak about today is my field of expertise, which I have developed over many years. But I understand that this is a department specializing on international relations, international business. However, the topic which I'm going to talk about, leadership, people, psychology, has the same agenda. It is to make the nation or the organization, the group or the individual to become a competitive unit. To be successful in the future is this common ground, which is the bridge between your area and my expertise. First of all, I would like to say hello. I am going to introduce myself a little bit, so you know who you are talking to or who's talking to you. And then I'm going to move on into the presentation and share with you my experience and my knowledge. I hope it will be also inspiring. Today is a very special day in Hungary. It is our Freedom Day. In 1848, which began the Hungarian Democratic Revolution against the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. We felt that we were very important in that union, but not free enough. So I think this holidays, which we have here in Hungary now, is related to the nation of Kazakhstan in that respect, that we are both belonging to something which was a very big empire, and we had a role in that big empire years ago, or decades ago, I should say, and 150 years ago or more. But at the same time, we have our own special identity. We are looking for our competitiveness. A little bit about myself. I'm pretty much an international person. I was born in Sweden, but I'm Hungarian. I grew up in Germany. So I have a very German mind in terms of logical thinking and units and structure. After the school years, I studied in England. I did a law degree, and then I did a Master of Business Administration at the KazNU Business School, also in London. So I have become a person who was interested more than in law in the business aspects, the decision aspects of people. And I studied at very nice and prestigious places at IESE, Barcelona, which I think is the best business school in the world. They have a great mission, but also in France at HEC. I focused on my theory in my PhD about the topic of how companies cooperate. It's called strategic alliances. And the question was, why do joint venture companies come about? And why is it that management thinks that alone is not so successful as cooperating with companies? And a few years later on, I settled in Hungary. It's about 25 years ago now, and I worked for companies, but mostly I'm an academic. I was MBA program director at the most prestigious business schools in the region. And you should know that the Central Europe, so Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Poland, over the last decade have become the engine of growth in the European Union. We have the highest growth rates. So Kazakh people who would like to maybe to study or to work in Hungary, I strongly recommend it. We have national government grants to study here for doctoral programs. And also our countries are actually very dynamically developing, more dynamically than what the countries you very often hear about further in the West. Also, culturally, we are considering ourselves between East and West. We are clearly a European country, but we know about the roots that we come from the East, and therefore, even in Hungary, you will find very often Kazakh similar ornaments and the yurts and historic elements in parallel. I invite you also to travel to Budapest. It's very easy to reach with direct flight, and it is a beautiful city. You can see here in the background my university. It is called Corvinus University. It is spring now here. The trees are becoming very beautiful. So just like for Nauris, you're almost having the same atmosphere here. I live, by the way, just next to the university. My field of expertise is people management. So I did lots of research in the topic of how to lead people, and what is good leadership. And this is what my talk will be mostly about. The last 5 years, I have grown a lot going towards the east. I am developing my teaching in Georgia, in Russia, in Ukraine, but I've been in Kazakhstan very often now. I know both universities. I have been teaching for KazNU, AIFC, and I have about 250 to 300 MBAs, executive MBAs, who have learned from me. So for you, you might find this interesting, that it is actually a very interesting country to teach, because there's lots of leadership development necessary. I bring into your country and into my teaching something which is world class, both in theory and also in technology of how to teach. And this is what I'm going to show you. I wrote a book about this. It's available on Amazon, but if somebody is interested in the light version, I can share that with you later on as well. I also recommend that you Google the Leadership and Flow Global Research Network. I will share with you the slides. They're already shared in the Microsoft Teams network, but I would like to talk to you about what we are researching and why these figures are sitting around a very important idea. To kick it off, I would like to show you a short video of 1 minute. It is made by a business school where I sometimes teach, Geneva Business School, also active in Kazakhstan. And they have made a promotional video of some of the entrepreneurial students. And the task will be for all of you to watch this 1 minute carefully. I will show it twice. And the question is, what are the ingredients to success of Anwar Batalov? What made his company successful? And this is the same theory you will see for nations and when companies are operating also, because there are ingredients which I think are universal. So watch now carefully.
Channel.
Wait.
On the other device, and we yes.
Company called Sana Vida, which we are now turning into the first healthy fast food restaurant in Barcelona.
This is our first restaurant. It's a pilot, but it's a 250 square meters pilot, 2 streets away from Paseo de Gracia.
We're doing it because we realize that's what the market wants. The market wants flexibility, the market wants options, they want a physical place where they can go and enjoy healthy food.
With a growing trend of the healthy living, and we're just gonna try to make people eat healthier. Yeah, I think that nowadays the most important thing is the network, is the connection, and GPS definitely gives that, because there are many students from all around the world, and basically that's where I met my partner.
I'm very glad and blessed that me and my partner see are the same vision for the company. Even if there's small mishaps every now and then where we don't agree, we see the same vision in the end, and that's what's very important.
We think, and I think, that there are 4 ingredients which are driving competitiveness. 4 types of capital. You have not mentioned, any of you, that they actually are successful because they do have a restaurant. They have money from somebody to install what you have seen. And most of the economics knowledge in terms of finance, international trade, is constantly talking about what are the available funds for competitiveness. Companies think that they're very successful if they have financing available. I will share with you all these slides, and you can use it later on in your own presentations as well, and it is shared already in the Teams chat group as well. However, the financial capital is not enough, and most of you have discovered that he has found a market need, that there was a need for this product. And this we would put into the second category, which we call human capital. It is using the brain, it is using the knowledge, the learning which they got in the business school, and to discover that there is actually a business opportunity. This second type of capital is very important, and it's very much pushed in Kazakhstan, I know, to bring with intellectual schools and with the digitalization, the state into competitive business opportunities and national opportunities. You have strongly written and typed about the third type of capital, which is necessary, it's social capital, the networks of knowing the right people. Therefore, in Kazakhstan, also like all universities in the West, create innovation hubs. They create ecosystems that stakeholders like the state or the research institutions and the researchers and the students can meet each other. So this is also being pushed in the entrepreneurial society. However, I think the fourth type of capital is the most important. This is ignored by most of the trainings which I come across. And when I teach in Kazakhstan, in your country, it is very often being used as something soft, and they don't think that this is actually creating the money for individuals and the money for teams. By money, I mean, of course, competitiveness, and also for nations. And it is the psychological capital. So when you see these guys talking, they are full of energy. You cannot explain with the fact that they maybe have money, that they are very enthusiastic about overcoming difficulties. He mentions in the text that sometimes there are problems, and he somehow has an internal resource, which is not his knowledge and is not his contact, but it's inside the person to do something. And I think it is super important for understanding for you in this international relations, also that any idea of cooperation, peace, international transactions happens with people who are real people. Otherwise, it remains an abstract concept. And therefore, it's not enough just to have the institutions when you know each other, to have a business direction or an idea, and to have the resources. You need to develop leadership. You need to develop people inside themselves who are actually interested in driving the organization and driving the work. And this positive psychological capital is developed in a psychological moment, which I'm going to teach you about. It is called the flow, the patok in Russian. But I think that these four types of competitiveness, four types of capital for competitiveness, are relevant at the individual level, as psychologists researched it, relevant for organizations, and I'm extending it now also for you as a framework to analyze the competitiveness between nations and other nations. Now, the question is, how do you develop true leaders, not followers? And it is very difficult because in Central Asian context, it is very much for historic and political and national reasons a top-down approach. So the government has ideas, it tells it to the national companies try to implement it, and then they say, do this, do that, develop competitiveness for the future. However, the students and managers I deal with, they have their own ideas, and there is actually a bottom-up approach as well. And if they are stopped by the organization, by the universities, by the society to develop what they want to create, what is their internal passion, what is their psychological capital, then they start to get frustrated. They leave the big organizations, and there's a huge trend in your country for many people, unfortunately, to leave the nation. It was like this here also in Hungary, but it is changing. Why? Because you need a more sophisticated leadership development. And I think for changing the competitiveness of the nation and the country, it is big responsibility for national companies and universities to develop first the organizational management, because in the organization, in the meso level, it is possible to motivate individuals, to create teachers, as I am, for example, who enjoy their work, who find it meaningful activity, and through my work, I hope that I can actually have an impact also on society. So when governments speak much around societal level in international relations, they typically work top down, and then they are disappointed that the individuals don't contribute enough to the society. But I think it should be organized rather at the meso level, at the organizational level. So when this is done, then a society can actually reinforce the loop, and it can put back more and more energy into the individual level, and then again into society. Now, I have spoken about this in various videos on my YouTube channel, and also it is here in the presentation. You can watch a little bit later. But ultimately, I would like to come back to this. How is positive psychological developed? And this is not just going to be now speculative, it's hard science. It is developed when somebody experiences success and if somebody is in happiness. Now comes very important message, obvious to many of you who are thinkers, but I need to repeat it. Many people think that this person working so hard with this old technology is not a happy person. Probably this person has to work too hard, is sweating. It would be much happier to sit in the Seychelles or be here in Hungary, in my beautiful country, or to be watching the nice lake, to be in Borovoje, for example, and to do nothing. But the reality is that all of you know that certain types of happiness become boring after a while. Even if you earn lots of money, you think that the other person earns more. It's not real happiness, and you really remember that there were moments when you did something difficult, maybe a school presentation, maybe a research paper, maybe doing a cooking at home, maybe sports activity, where you find actually happiness in doing the activity. This in English is called pleasure, whilst the other one we call enjoyment. Enjoyment is passive and it has a plateau, whilst pleasure is interesting because it develops your skills. You find actually pleasure in applying your skills and you get better and better. So leading people is not something where you just get the money and you're the top boss and that's it. Leading people and organization is a very, very hard job, and it can be learned, it can be developed if you experience some success. And how to experience this success is discovered. So now I'm going to speak to you about meaningful life, the nice, positive approach of happiness, which we call in English to find the pleasure. In fact, it is to have an optimal experience during the day. And this book is described, you can buy it in any Kazakh bookstore. For example, if you go to shopping malls, this I made in Keruen City, in Astana, but I took similar photos, of course, on Rosi Bakiev, on Mega Bookshop, and I'm not talking of the Bulgakov book now or other Kazakh classics. I'm talking of this book called Patok, The Flow. This was written by my close friend and colleague. He's called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He's the most famous Hungarian scientist because he founded a new science. The science is called positive psychology, and it is researching what makes nations, people, society creative. How are new technologies invented? How are new social concepts invented? And what is the energy people have inside to do their work properly and well, and do it without the money, because we know that because of money, it becomes after a while boring. So how is this flow created? What is the flow? Flow is the moment which is when you really enjoy the activity. In the Kastiev Museum, there are three different parts of showing the Kazakh sport or the Central Asian sport of Kokpar, which I love this picture. It's full of energy. And you know, you see these people are doing the best. The rules are very simple, to bring the goat behind the other line. So one ingredient to experience the flow mental state is that you need something you want to achieve. And for simple activities, the task is to achieve it. Simple tasks, of course. And for running a society, making good international relations, driving competitiveness, the task is super complex. But at the same time, it's very simple to make it better. The second element which is needed for achieving this mental state of flow, and you can see in the picture, is immediate feedback. You see immediately where the horses are running, where the opponents are, how you advance, how the horse is moving. So you must feel the activity. Therefore, in leadership, we need to create environment where you get lots of feedback from your activities, because without feedback, no flow can happen. The third element, which is here in this picture also, and in flow is necessary, is that the activity is not too difficult and not too easy. If I would be sitting on this horse, I would feel completely anxiety. The task is too difficult. The task is too difficult. And for a Kokpa player here in Hungary, we have the sports teams as well. playing with the Kazakhs is right about the right challenge. It's more difficult than they can normally play, and this will give them the challenge. So the third ingredient is to find the balance between skills and challenges. The fourth element is these Batirs, this great sportsmen, heroes, they really need to have focus on the activity. They cannot think about the tax. They cannot think about the COVID. They cannot think about where they will be on holidays next year. They cannot think of family joys. It is only in the here and the now. So now that I'm speaking to you, I don't think about other things which will come back to me later on. Also for you, it might be interesting to hear, and you can watch this later on, that the first description of this mental state, which is scientifically discovered by my colleague Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, is in the Russian literature of Tolstoy, where there is Levin. He's in the countryside. He's very, very sad because his love was refused by Kitty, and he goes back into his countryside. And then one moment, in total apathy, he takes the scythe and starts to cut the grass. And Tolstoy tells him that it was difficult, it became better and better, and then he says it was the most beautiful day in his life. So it is possible to create this mental state, which is so energizing, with simple rules when you are following them. And one of the rules, the third rule, was that the task should be just perfect, not too easy and not too hard. Because if the task is too difficult, you feel that the challenge is too high, then you will be in anxiety. If the task is too easy, then you feel bored. And if you have no opportunities to take action, you're just always doing the same routine and never changing anything, and you don't know what you're good at, then this is apathy. So we are talking now of the flow channel. We're talking of the emotions which Csikszentmihalyi has identified. We can teach this, you can learn this. This is described in the book. And this is why it is called the optimal experience, because the flow is the mental state when you are doing something which energizes you, in contrast to all the other emotions which exist during the course of the day. You can be sometimes a little bit worrying and anxiety. I was a little bit in worrying when we had to set up the call. I was logging in with a different account. And I hope that you are not in boredom now, but you are feeling in control. You feel that what I'm saying. And if I would open the dialogue with you, which I cannot now because it's a mini lecture rather, then if you would be opening it, then we would get probably into flow, intellectual flow. So these mental states can be learned. This is what I teach to managers, that they should understand when they themselves are in these emotional states and when employees are in these different emotional states. So now we have moved from talking about the psychology of flow to the business relevance of it. Why is flow relevant? Flow is relevant because it's the energy behind positive psychological capital. It is the energy which is needed for entrepreneurs and leaders of universities, government, to enjoy the activity and not to ask the worst question, how much do you pay for me? It will not lead really to happiness. And look at the dogs. They go home from work. They have to work very hard and they complain. It's always be quiet, sit still, sit, heel. So these dogs are not created for that. And a bad manager always gives the same task for the same people every day, so they fall into apathy. But real flow leadership, which we teach, is actually understanding that a good leader is the problem. These dogs don't want to eat more. They want to have moments when they can be themselves, maybe run a bit more, maybe sniff a bit more, maybe discover some playfulness in life. So this is what Csikszentmihalyi tells you, and I'm telling you that you have to learn to understand, to decode how people are moving into this flow mental state, because it is so important for the success. So this flow is not some blah blah, some esoteric stuff. It is not like, you should always look on the bright side of life. It is hardcore science. It is a scientific area called positive psychology, and it can be repeated. I told you, it can be repeated by setting first a task. You need to have a goal. So if there's no goal, you don't know what you want to achieve, this moment of energizing insight cannot appear. My goal is that you should understand how psychology, people management drives international level of competitiveness as well. The second type of feedback, of ingredients you need, is the feedback. And in my case, it is that I'm looking at the time a little bit. I'm seeing how I'm progressing. Do I keep the message clear? Do I use the slides appropriately? So if you don't have any immediate feedback from the work, that's why grading is so important to students. That's why giving good words, writing emails back to each other on how the progress is. Like we did with Aida when we prepared this, it was great because we had immediate feedback of how the presentation preparation is going well. So that's the second ingredient which Csikszentmihalyi discovered. And this is the third one which he discovered and we teach, is that the activities as a leader, you have to understand what is the skill of a person. And if the skill is developing, you need to give the person more and more challenge. When I recall, for example, Aida, 2-3 weeks ago when we started this, she had little experience with organizing the public event, right? You probably felt in anxiety, but now you know it, we did it, and you feel actually energized with the success because you have developed dynamically your skills, and we did it slowly. I did guide you slowly because I didn't say all the problems. You discovered that there were slices of problems each time. First setting up, then the different URL, changing the title, changing the time. So if I would tell everything immediately as a leader to a colleague immediately, then that person feels outside of the comfort zone, outside of the flow zone, and in anxiety, and it would not have worked. So thank you very much for having developed and resolved this problem. We did a great spagat, or we did this solution of difficult tasks, and this is our level of organizing new events. So what I was telling you is, you were, for example, in flow at the beginning of any activity, and then after a while, the same type of cooking or teaching becomes too easy, simply because you get better in learning, you develop the skills. And then when the task is too easy, you need to improve the level. And of course, you overshoot very often. Instead of moving from B to C, you move probably to D, and you think, oh my God, how will this go? And then it becomes easy again. And that's why I like to teach in Central Asia, in Kazakhstan, because each time there are cultural, organizational, conceptual challenges, difficulties, I have to transmit. And I develop my own language, my own story, and I can now speak of Kokbar and of Tolstoy and the nation, and I have developed a better skill to convey the message. So I can speak now with very complex societal leaders, political leaders, about why flow is important for the competitiveness. And the third element, which I just discovered, is not enough. We also need the fourth input, which is called focus. Avoid the distractions. So I make lots of photos. Please follow me on Facebook if you wish, or on Instagram, especially the YouTube channel. Also, I recommend for professional aspects. But if I make my photos, I cannot actually focus on people who walk by or the cars. I'm almost have to prepare myself for the photo shooting in the city with very much caution, because I know when I'm doing my work, I'm taking photos of the city, beautiful Budapest, then I will lose the distractions, I will close it off, and I will not be able to actually realize when I move into danger zone. And the same is true for work. When we do some certain type of activity, we cannot think of other activities. So now I would like to talk to you after I hope you have understood. Actually, I will make a short break to ask and check whether there are questions in the chat which have arisen. So,
dear Zoltan, I would like to know, to understand the place of soft skills. You have mentioned that soft skills are very important in order to be competitive, in
yes.
order to be successful. So in this theory, where soft skills should be?
Well, the answer is exactly what I'm going to tell you. where it should be. It is in the fourth category. It is in the psychological category, because all the others are hard skills. You know, how to make a financial plan, how to make a marketing presentation. It doesn't explain the motivation. By soft skills, I mean human-related skills, not knowledge, cognitive. Cognitive is in the second category, but people skills, management skills belong into this one. So how to develop this is the question. How to develop human knowledge, right? Ideas, experience, education is what many companies and nations are looking for. They use Microsoft Teams and online teaching. But your question is not only where it is the soft skills, but how to develop this, right? How to do that. And we have two answers for this. You can be lucky. Maybe some people have already good soft skills by nature. Or you could read the book called Flow, Patok, because it speaks about the human soft skills, the psychological capital of it. But most people in the modern world don't want to read. They have no time to read. And most people want to practice the skills because they don't have naturally these abilities. So neither the luck from the past nor the book reading is a solution. We need a digital solution to develop these skills. And for this reason, with this world-famous professor, we have developed a simulation game for managers to develop soft skills. It is called Fligby, and it's available through me also in Russian version. I use this for trainings with subtitled version, and Fligby is an acronym. It stands for the first bestseller by KazNU, which is called the book called Flow. The second bestseller is called Good Business. It's also available in Russian. You can have a look at this book also. I strongly recommend. And this type of game is a video simulation game. It's a combination of different functions. The first function is you will learn soft skills. You're going to learn about how to put people into the flow mental state, how to lead people into flow, and how to make good business decisions in the context of a simulated story. The second element of a good serious game is that it is a digital solution. So in this case, it's a video. You're watching the movie. The movie is like a virtual reality. You manage a wine company, which is located in California. And it is a wine company very similar to Arba wine in the Almaty region. The owner is called Mr. Zainullah, and he has lots of challenges. He has to manage the team, he has to manage the business, and he has to manage an external environment, society, to organize good harmony with the local community. And in this simulation game, you manage such a wine company. Now, the third part of the game is that it is fun. You see how you play this individually, and you see how others are making the progress. When the game is finished, you find out about your soft skills results. You can replay the game because it's a simulation, and so you can go back again and again for 4 or 5 hours into the story and become a better leader by learning from the virtual coach and seeing your results. So we have a very interesting global competitive solution for developing soft skills, Aida and friends. It is called Fligby, and it is unique because it's movie-based. It is fun and a game, and it's an individual approach, but you're learning something. You learn the theory of how to apply flow in the workplace. So you basically learn how to balance individuals, people, into the flow channel. You have to understand the 7 employees, the production manager, the finance manager, the secretary, the sales lady, and they argue with each other. They don't like each other, but you have to make a balance for the company by understanding who's good at what can you give to whom as a challenge. Now, the next one, Aida, was your question about the soft skills. You see that in order to experience flow as a teacher, or as a manager, or as a politician, you need to know what skills you have. If you don't know what skills you have, you cannot choose the challenge which is appropriate. Therefore, we measure in Fligby 29 leadership skills during the gameplay. It is called non-intrusive way of skills observation, And these skills help to understand what type of hero you can be. In Kazakhstan and in Hungary, the trend is now to give young people, managers buy this trend now for money, to give feedback on what skills they have. Young people grow up in hearing what they want to be, but they don't know whether they're really good at this. The skills have never been measured. They have fantasies. They say, very often they tell me lies. They tell me, I'm a good team player because I play football, but that's not a team player in the business context. Some people say, I'm very good in diplomacy. I say, how do you know? Well, I like to speak diplomatically, but they never have measured this. And we have a way of measuring this. So during the gameplay, 4 or 5 hours, you take about 150 decisions, and we can interpret the decisions you make because they're dilemmas, and we can measure the skills. So when the skills are measured, it is a different picture. And somebody who had great diplomacy skills is then verified, and I say, yes, you should go into a business or a leadership position where there is lots of diplomacy needed. Maybe you're very good at conflict management, and then you should go into a skill, a work where there's lots of arguments. Maybe you should go for a company or a management position where you need lots of emotional intelligence or lots of active listening to understand what the other party wants to achieve because you want to facilitate the process. So these are the 29 skills which we measure. Which are the 4 most important skills in the world according to us and Csikszentmihalyi? Which are the 4 most important skills according to us and to Csikszentmihalyi? The 4 most important skills are the skills which generate flow in the team and in the individuals. And we know that flow is generated with skill number 24. You need to have a strategic direction. That was skill number 1, or input number 1, setting a goal, as I told you. Skill number 15 is very important, to give feedback. You need to be able to tell the employees how they're doing well, or the colleagues where the trend is good. You need to understand the skill of the employee, that's 24, and you need to be able to balance, to give the person not too difficult task and not too easy, so skill number 4. So for me, as a fan and ambassador of the flow promoting leadership theory in Central Asia and all around the world, we think that the flow is the energy you need to be really competitive through psychological strengths. Not the knowledge itself is not enough, not the money is not enough, the network is not enough. You need to have flow. And in order to have this for your employees, the flow, you need these 4 leadership skills which are developing it. In a company or in the training AIDA and friends, I also encourage you to make an audit. Which are the skills which are necessary for the organization? Maybe in an NGO or in a state institution, you need less entrepreneurship, which is skill 13, and you need more people who are actually leaders where involvement is important, because it's a new societal movement, that may be a democratic institution, and you need to bring people on board who want to feel that they're involved in the task. So I'm coming to an end so that we have 10-15 minutes to talk about. I did a very fast presentation. And remember, I started to speak of Anwar Batalov, and what you wrote as inputs into his success were focused mostly on the knowledge, on that there was a market for him. Luckily, we can debate whether in Kazakhstan people don't want to eat healthy food. I think that's not true. I see many restaurants who go into this segment. It exists. Young people, of course, but also healthy brain thinkers also. Older people, I mean. But you also spoke of the network. But nobody really mentioned the hard reality that the restaurant would not exist without financial capital. But that's easy, and it's not enough to have money, to have a business idea, to have a market, and to know the people. You need to explain to me what makes this person fight every day, like in the Kokbar. So when I go back to this picture here with the horses, you know, Kastiev, here you are. You know, you need to have a horse to enjoy the flow in the cockpit. That's the financial capital. You need to have the knowledge how to breed the horses, what the rules are, who belongs into your team. You need to have a team. You cannot play this game alone. You need to have the best people around you. But if you get lots of money for this work and you really don't enjoy the money anymore, you need to explain why these people are spending their life, their blood. Maybe they're going to break their neck. Where does this energy come from to do such dangerous game in such a highly sophisticated, energizing way? Where does the mental, psychological energy come from? And my answer, and our answer scientifically, is it comes from the flow experience. And this flow experience is the real energy which the society, politics should promote in organizations, so that they have good management, good leadership, because then it will help individuals to re-energize themselves for institutions. At the moment, ideas are written in documents, and then they are hanging on the wall, they're on pro presentations, but young people don't find it very energizing to work for the state, for social movements, and even big companies very often just want to give money when they don't have good management. But when they have good management, then the individuals bring in this additional energy. So now we can open the debate. I wish for you that the flow be with you. You can see my university in the background, our bridge, which now has lots of flags on it, Hungarian national flags. And I'm going to share with you the slides, or let me know if you have not seen the slides yet. They should be actually already shared with you in the chat, not in the chat, but in the group. So, Aida, I want to ask you to give us some debate, some discussions about, and help me to moderate with your students the debate, what you normally want in the course, please. How was this?
Dear Zoltan, we are so glad. We are delighted to welcome you to this to participate you to this event. Thank you very much for your masterclass. And now, dear students, do you have any questions?
Well, I prepared a lot for this, so I expect about 10 to 15 questions from your class to be international professional. So the idea, we have worked a lot, and I'm sure the students have 3-4 questions based on the course. So go ahead, please. Maybe you can call somebody, some of your best students. You know them better.
Altinai, Danочка, do you have any questions?
Yes,
please?
Altinai. Devachka.
Yes, I have a question. May I ask? Very nice to meet you. First of all, thank you for a lecture, and I would like to ask that I heard that the flow, when you are in a flow, like you can't really feel the time, and like all your tiredness will like go off just. And
exactly. There is a slide which I've not shown now. What are the features of being in flow? We didn't speak of that because it's international business context. One of the features when you know about flow is that you notice that you have been in this mental state of enjoying the work only afterwards. So in contrast to feeling anxiety or feeling bored, in flow, you don't realize that you are in this state. You only afterwards retrospectively say, wow, that was a great lecture. That was a great activity. One of my great students, an executive MBA, is Arman Chilmanov. He's one of the few Olympic winners of Kazakhstan. He won in Rio a medal. He's the best Taekwondo fighter. And I asked him, Arman, when you are on the tatami and you fight, how long is this? He said, oh, professor, it's 2 minutes plus 2 minutes to fight for being the best Taekwondo fighter. And I asked him, how do you feel this 2 minutes? How does it feel? And he told me, after the 4 minutes, I am kaput. I'm done. I'm really tired. I'm really done, as if I was fighting 2 plus 2 hours. So in flow, your energy goes out extremely. It is full force. And what happens with the time, it becomes every little second becomes very, very observable to you. All your brain is there. or when somebody's jumping from the ski slopes, right? On Al-Farabi Street, you go up to, you're at KazNU, you go further north, Esentai River, and there is the jumping slope. When I didn't do that to jump from it, but when somebody jumps from it, they fly 8 seconds, right? Maybe 10, not even 10 seconds. But for them, in this flow state, they feel everything, right? So when an ice skater is making a pirouette, I'm thinking of your great Kazakh ice skater, of course. When he's turning and jumping, for him, the time is very elongated. The other thing can also happen when an activity is very long, it feels that it becomes condensed. Maybe you're running a marathon, or some people are on the Astana bicycle team. You know, they make a tour for the whole day, and then suddenly they say in the evening, oh, the day is already over. So in psychology, moment of flow, one feature is that the time is being changed. And the second one, which you alluded to, is that you actually don't feel any pain. You don't feel the external world doesn't really exist. You're fully here. In the modern world, we call this feature mindfulness, that you experience the here and the now. Very useful question. Thank you. Are you in flow sometimes in this, Altinay, as well? What type of activities make you fall into flow?
Not Altinay, it's Dana. It's Dana.
Okay, Dana.
Okay.
Dana.
Actually, I can't really remember because it seldom happens, and one of my dreams is to actually practically reach the flow. And I also think that when you are in flow, all of your receptors, all of your sense organ will open up. So I'm very excited about it.
Dana, this happens to all of us when we are small and children. So when children are playing in the sand, you know, for them, half an hour, 2 hours can go by, and they're just playing with the sand, or when they put Lego together. So children are on the bicycle and they do this. So all of us have the capacity to learn, and flow and learning is related to each other. So when you're beyond the control, when you get something new, that is the moment of flow, because your skills are moved away. Otherwise, if you do everything which is routine, in psychology on the map, we call that control. However, when we grow up, we have to learn lots of social rules, mathematical rules, societal rules. So you are like the dog going home from the work and complaining I can never experience the flow, I can never be happy. So you should fight for this. The essence of Csikszentmihalyi's book, Patok, is to make you aware that your life becomes more beautiful when you are creating little moments, half an hour, 20 seconds of flow. This can happen in the work. So for example, I enjoy putting presentations together. I enjoy writing emails. I enjoy repairing the bicycle, and I enjoy taking photos. For other people, flow can happen in a nice conversation, when they're cooking something, when they're doing fishing. Many people in Kazakhstan, in Almaty, they told me, for them the most beautiful moments in life is when they go to the Balhash lake and they just watch a rod, business people, and they watch the rod and they try to manipulate the fish to catch it. So it can be any type of activity. Csikszentmihalyi says, when you make your shoelaces, don't think of the shoelace. You have to make it very beautifully. It's an opportunity for you to be an artist in the shoelacing cutting, in the shoemaking. When you cut the onions, think about it. Is it the best way you do it? So back to international business. When people have meetings, they are thinking too much about the big concepts of peace and everything. They should actually think about, how can they make the meeting as artful? Here in this meeting, we have 1 hour time, 1.5 hours. How can we make this as artfully as possible? And then this activity turns energizing into you, and you say, this was a great meeting. We have not achieved everything yet, but we have learned. I have become a better negotiator or a better presenter. Thank you. Dana, super. Other questions? Maybe some of you can type, or you can also type in Russian if you wish, and then I will quickly translate. We have 5 more minutes for this.
Can I
Yes, please.
I have no question, but I just wanted to say thank you for your good example with our national game. Why I really liked it, because I can ride a horse very good, and I played this game, and I really felt this energy, this adrenaline. And your example with international business, with our life, is very good, because in Kokpar, like in business, like in our life, there is really, for example, one aim that's clear, but there are many factors that that there is no easy way to do it. And when I play Kokpar, for example, and then when I, for example, some researching for some business cases, I understand it. Your example was really interesting.
Very good. Thank you very much for your appreciation. Armin, correct?
My name is Adil.
Adil. Okay. So
yes.
There are no activities in the world which are flow for everybody or flow for nobody, right? So you have picked the horse and the Kokpar, but for me it would never be the flow. I would always feel afraid because I don't have the relevant set of skills. So the task is for you, for all of you, to discover which skills do you have in a certain environment. And in sports, maybe you're better in running and not so good in swimming. When you're cooking, maybe you're better in soup cooking than in fruit in making marmalade. And the same is true for business and leadership. That's why we have the 29 leadership skills, which I showed you, the many ones. And you have to put together what is the portfolio of your skills that you discover. This is going to be my Kokpar game in the business leadership context, right? Maybe you're not good. This type of portfolio you have is not good for leading big groups. It is maybe better for leading entrepreneurial challenges. And your point was very useful also to show that we can make the parallel from sports to business, like we saw in the movie with these entrepreneurs. But I'm talking about leadership for society, for universities, for political parties, and so on. So AIDA's role with the institution is actually to bring this idea of that leadership is not about power. You should do this, you should do that. It is actually an art which you should enjoy, like a Kokpar is enjoying the very dangerous and super complex, yet very difficult game. It is called to bring the animal there. So very useful. Thank you. What is the next question? Is it okay?
Like not to be successful, but how to be happy.
Yes, but it is the same, Aida, because when you are happy in developing your skills, applying your skills, this we call the pleasure, and that is the flow, right? So when people use happy, I showed you the two pictures, and very often they think it has to do something with happy is when you get lots of money and you're powerful. But no, we know that psychologically happiness can happen only when you are doing something which you are finding just optimal, and that is a happiness you can repeat, and you get always better and better at it because you can increase the complexity. Now here in the chat there is a statement. It was stated in the video that it is important to have the same vision of the company with a partner. Therefore, I have a question about that two leaders should do if they have already started a business but can't agree on one particular topic during the work. Like there is no compromise. Does it mean the end of the company, or are there ways we can solve this problem? There are ways to solve this problem. However, this needs soft skills, emotional intelligence, and you will not. It is the same in your life with your partner, your wife, your husband. It's always a question: how can I renegotiate the new realities? You cannot negotiate all the business vision at the beginning. It is a dynamic process. And if you want to put together the perfect business or the perfect team, the perfect husband, the perfect wife, the perfect life for yourself, it does not exist. Therefore, this dynamism, this need to manage the situation should become the happiness. So really successful business people don't want to be in a company where there are no problems. They want to have problems. Why? Because it creates the opportunity to lead. It creates the opportunity to interact with a new challenge. If you have, for example, the cockbar in parallel, you have the perfect team, and there is no partner, no challenge, no difficulty coming, then riding the horse and being on the cockbar is no fun. You actually need this difficulty. So when you're cooking something and everything goes so easy, it is the definition of that is that it is boring. So in your question, the framing is unpleasant, that, you know, we have a big vision problem. But a good leader approach would be to start to see, can we do something about this opportunity? And if it doesn't come about, then that's no problem. You can still switch and you will use your leadership energy and your ideas in a new business. But giving up when the first conflicts come about is an opportunity to use your skills at a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe a bit abstract question, but I think given my age and your level of interest, I think this is a useful answer. And I see very often in Kazakhstan, I have to say, colleagues at universities, they have great ideas, and the first problem comes with me or organizing, and then they disappear. You don't know how many university business schools always wanted to cooperate with me. Well, the vision is there, but when the first problems come, then they say, oh, we cannot do this and we cannot do that. They don't have psychic energy. They have not developed the skills of overcoming the challenges yet. That's why I think it is a very good question you asked, very useful.
Ninочка, thank you very much for your question. Yes, we have to change our attitude to challenges, to problems, to difficulties, and try to solve.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So, in short, please have a look at my materials. Maybe you have relatives, people in decision making who are interested in leadership development. Maybe we will have a course with Fligby. It takes longer. I recommend this for PhD. You should involve maybe stakeholders like government institutions to develop. We have to start this from the top, that they understand, and then they can actually create environment for young managers who are different and understand what the flow is. But I don't think there's an alternative for Kazakhstan. So if the top managers, this government is not developing the flow, the leadership skills, young people will run away more and more and more. So I think
yes,
that
and
just,
they, yes.
You agree with this?
Yes, and otherwise young people leave Kazakhstan. Yes, it's reality.
Yes.
There is another question. I delete.
Can you read it? I will check. I will search for something in a second.
Okay. Does reaching a state of flow require a user to be competent in specific field? In the diagram, flow occurs at the point where both skills and challenge level intersect, requiring both of them to be higher than average.
Exactly. That's the point. So if you do something routine, activities, and the skills are high, but the challenge is you do everything under 100%. You do very much under control. Flow, for example, for a great tech. So flow comes about when you're beyond what is routine. So, for example, driving a car. When somebody is a good driver, he comes from Chimkent, right? A very, very, very extreme driver, very dangerous driver. For this person, driving in Almaty is very boring. For you, normal drivers, it is routine and it is under control, but for him it's super boring. But if I would jump into the car and tell him, take me to the airport, I have to be there in 20 minutes, and says, yes, now we can go, then he is beyond the control and he can use his high level of skills, and then he will experience flow, right? So for others, the same driving in a city when there is lots of traffic maybe creates some flow that they think, oh, I have to drive this route or the other route now. I'm not going to use the 2GIS or Google Maps, but I know the little routes myself better from experience. And the other extreme, of course, is also the case that if you have abilities not high enough and you have to do something completely new, most people feel a little bit worried, a little bit nervous in the fingers, sweat, and this is also the case. So flow is right, it's called the channel. In English, we also say to be in the zone. What does it mean to be in the zone? It means to be between boredom and between anxiety at the extremes. And this is what we try to find. And I showed you also on the slides that it's a dynamic process. Does reaching the flow require user to be competent in a specific field? Well, to the first part of the question, no, you need to develop the competence in the specific field. You start with certain skill at a low level, and then you do this activity constantly and improve it. So you don't need to be a chess expert. You have to be a chess beginner, and then an advanced beginner, and then an intermediate, and then an advanced intermediate, and then you become competent in a specific area, which is called chess. This is the process of learning. So that's why it has to do a lot with pedagogy, that learning, developing a competence. Maybe you're naturally talented and you can ride the cockpah horse immediately, but most people have to learn it gradually. So the competence is necessary, but it is developable. And the same is true for how to lead organization, how to make KazNU a great working place. That's why I recommend my training also for faculty. So university leaders need to learn about flow, deans, marketing directors, because this is an internal question for KazNU as well.
Yes, yes, I think so, yes.
Okay. So, dear friends, soon next week you will have, you already yesterday celebrated National Traditional Day. Next week there's Nowruz. I was actually in Almaty exactly 5 years ago these weeks, so I know the climate is between cold and sunny. I have seen lots of tulips already at that time when I was there. So I'm looking forward to be in Almaty in June again. And if you come to Budapest as tourists, I strongly recommend. It's much cheaper than Paris and much more fun. And it's easy to reach from Astana with a direct low-cost flight. It's like fly Aristan. It's actually cheaper to fly from Astana to Budapest than from Almaty to Astana because we have more competitive airline. But now it's not operating, so in June it will come. And for you, dear colleague, Aida, thank you for organizing this. I think we should speak after the discussion about the future opportunities. Best wishes. May the flow be with you.
Yes, I would like to thank our guest for his excellent performance. Everything was interesting and useful for us, for all Kazakhstani students. Thank you very much. See you later. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, dear students.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. It was very
Rahmet.
helpful. Thank you.
Sağ olunuz.
Sağ olunuz.